Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Happy Valentine's Day, or happy day, whatever you decide to click on this video. In today's video, I'm going to be recommending 10 of my favorite Black romances. Romances featuring all Black couples, or trios in some instances. Now, in the description down below, I will list a bunch of my favorite Black creators, and I encourage you to go follow those folks for even more recommendations. I'm just one person, but I think it now more than ever is so important to read diversely, and happy Black History Month and happy Valentine's Day. So we're combining all of those lovely things into this recommendation video, but please go check out those creators that I list in the description. We've got Mina, we've got Aaron from Booked and Busy, we've got Tells of Tales, who else we got? We got Tori. There's a bunch of creators that I'll list. Please go check them out. Without further ado, I'm going to give you the synopsis and a little mini book review of each of my 10 recommendations, and let's get started. The book that I'm going to start with first is probably the furthest away from my personal comfort zone, because this book in particular reads more like a literary fiction with a prominent romance than a romance, if that makes sense. This is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This is following two authors, Eva and Shane, and when they were teenagers, they spent 7 days together in the summer, in June, and then they never saw each other again until the present timeline, which happens, and they meet up again, and essentially they've been in love with each other this whole time, and all of their writing has been, it's so romantic. Their writing has been, you know, trying to evoke and get over each other, but really it's like writing love letters to each other through their novels. This is deeply romantic, but I do have to say, please check the trigger warnings for this one. We've got, you know, alcohol, we've got drug use in here, alcohol use, suicidal ideation. Our main character Eva struggles with chronic migraines, which I thought the disability representation here was fabulous. Again, this leans a little bit more literary fiction, but I still highly recommend this one. And my personal star rating for this is like a 3.5 out of 5 stars, but I think this one is really solid if you're looking for something a little bit more deep and a little bit more literary in your romance. In a very similar vein, we have Kennedy Ryan, and the book I'm holding up is Real by Kennedy Ryan, but really Kennedy Ryan, period. If you're looking for something more literary focused, maybe more chick lit focused, that has a very strong romance in it, Kennedy Ryan is that girl. My favorite Kennedy Ryan is Real. In Real, we're following Neva and Cannon. Yes, his name is Cannon, like after the camera. So she is an up-and-coming actress, and he is a film director, and they are working on a film together, her as the lead. And, you know, she's kind of up-and-coming, she's kind of an unknown, and he sees her on Broadway and says, I have to have her in my production. We are getting almost 2 timelines in here. We're following, the movie is like an autobiography of this woman from like the 20s, 30s, and then we're also following the present day romance / the production of the film. Neva also, I believe, has lupus, and so that comes into play into the story very heavily. And she also has a lot of family baggage to contend with, which I won't spoil, but it's very dramatic. This, I feel like Kennedy Ryan really brings the drama in a good way. She really knows how to toe the line, dealing with these really deep topics and having a really delicious, swoon-worthy romance on top of that. I really love Real. Obviously, disability representation in here is super meaningful to me. A lot of what Neva struggles with are very similar symptoms to what I deal with, so this one really spoke to me on a very deep level. This one is a little long, I will say, but it is definitely worth the page count. I think I gave this one 4.5 or a full 5 stars. Can't quite remember off the top of my head, but I deeply love this book. Next, we're going to talk about Rebecca Weatherspoon, and the book that I recommend by her is Harbor, although there are other books by Rebecca Weatherspoon that I've also read that I really enjoy. But Harbor is a polyamorous relationship featuring 3 folks, and it's really complicated, so stick with me for just a second. Have Brooklyn, Vaughn, and Shaw, okay? So at the beginning of the book, these 3 characters meet at the funeral of their respective partners who were cheating with each other and were murdered in bed. So right from the premise, you get that this one is wild and has some really dark themes in it. So again, please check the trigger warnings on this one, but this is basically Brooklyn, Vaughn, and Shaw. Vaughn and Shaw are already in a relationship. One of their partners was the one who was murdered, and Brooklyn has never been in a polyamorous relationship before. It was her boyfriend at the time. That's how that all works. Anyway, so this really is a story about healing. Brooklyn and Vaughn and Shaw coming together after such a horrendous tragedy and a huge betrayal of all of them, and it's a really beautiful story of them coming together. Not just the smut, because the smut is also on fire in this book. There is some BDSM elements in here as well if you're looking for that, but this is a truly really tender story about grief and overcoming that betrayal and the loss, with these 3 characters coming together. So I found this one it's a really interesting mix of really deep grief exploration and healing journey of all 3 of these characters, and then a really smutty romance on top of that. So somehow Rebecca Weatherspoon combined all of those things in the perfect blend for me, and I gave this one 4 stars. Another book that's a little bit more outside of my wheelhouse is How to Catch a Queen by Alyssa Cole. Again, Alyssa Cole, powerhouse in the romance genre. She's also writes in a bunch of other different genres as well. An absolute powerhouse of an author, but How to Catch a Queen has been my favorite romance by her. And this one is really interesting because this is not typically my cup of tea. We're following Sanyu and Shanti, and Sanyu is like royalty essentially, and you know, Shanti catches his eye, and there's this, you know, romance revolving around that. She's not sure she wants to get into that. But the reason this one isn't quite in my wheelhouse personally is because Sanyu has a lot of internalized misogyny and honestly external misogyny, that he needs to work through, and he does through the course of this book. So this one is really about for me, the character journey of this guy kind of realizing how wrong he is and loving Shanti as an equal, and not just, he still has a little bit of an alpha male thing going on by the end of the book in terms of the bedroom stuff, but he kind of overcomes his misogyny in this one. And so yes, it's a little bit frustrating in the beginning because you're like, this man is terrible, but he actually learns and grows throughout the course of this novel, which I really appreciate and I thought was done really well. In this culture, polyamory is also very normalized, which is nice, but this particular couple is not polyamorous from my recollection. So this one's really interesting. I highly recommend you check it out. It is a contemporary romance, just to clarify. I think I gave this one 4 stars. I still think the beginning of this book was really frustrating with Sanyu as a character, but by the end, he really grew on me and he grew as a character. One of my favorite romances of all time is up next. And of course, it's my girl, Talia Hibbert. Work for it. This little book is a queer, grumpy, two black men romance that I absolutely adore. This, I'm getting emotional just like thinking about this book. This is about Olu and Griff. And Olu has had something traumatic happen to him very recently. He was very publicly outed to his very homophobic family, cut off, and he's feeling very violated, obviously, by this, and decides to essentially run away from all of his problems and kind of take a working vacation, going to a farm and like working on the farm as a volunteer, where we meet Griff, who is kind of the head farm manager. And he also makes his own like tinctures and comes up with a bunch of the recipes that the farm sells for their cordials. And this is about the two of them kind of coming out of their shells and loving each other. And honestly, when these two held hands, I screamed my head off. This is so sweet and tender. This is a little bit more serious than a rom-com, I'd say, but it's totally worth it. I absolutely love this. 5 stars. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I keep reaching for this one over and over again. The romance is so sweet and tender, and the journey both of these men go on is truly incredible. And Talia Hibbert can kind of do no wrong in my eyes. Next, let's talk Fake It Till You Bake It. This is by Jamie Wesley. This one is more on the rom-com side of things, so we're getting a little more lighthearted now with my recommendations. We're following Donovan and Jada, and Donovan is a football player, professional football player, and he kind of comes to this realization that he can't play football forever. He's gonna need some basically stability for his post-football career when he retires, so some kind of business to, you know, sustain him and his family. He takes care of his family financially, and so he starts a bakery. Then we have Jada, who is the granddaughter of the owner of the football team that Donovan plays on, but Jada is kind of aimless. She's essentially a 20-something who doesn't know what she wants to do with her life. She's gonna get cut off financially, and so she decides to work for Donovan in his bakery, and the two of them kind of work on the strategy of the bakery together. And so this one is a little bit more fun, but we also are kind of having a sort of a coming of age story to an extent, with Jada kind of like figuring her life out, figuring out what she wants to do, and then of course a beautiful romance of these two falling in love. And I really liked this one. This one was a 4-star read. I really enjoyed the two of them, you know, the scenes of them baking together, Jada learning how to bake, and I thought Donovan was a great hero. And so yeah, that's this one. The other rom-com I will talk about is The Wedding Party by Jasmine Guillory. So Jasmine Guillory has this really long romance series. The first book is The Wedding Date, which isn't my favorite, but this is I believe the second book in this series. We're following the best man and the maid of honor, Maddie and Theo, and they really don't like each other. But they have to come together to work on this wedding for their friends who are getting married. And of course, they end up tumbling into bed together and eventually developing feelings. And this one, of the 6, I believe I read 6 books in this series, this one is my favorite. I thought the dynamic of this sort of like don't like you, enemies to lovers thing, I thought that worked really well for me. And I just really like this one. This one, again, has a little bit more of a lighthearted vibe. And of Jasmine Guillory's works, this one is my favorite. So this is my recommendation. But any Jasmine Guillory in this series is pretty decent, in my opinion. Another one of my favorite romances of all time, period, is Rebel by Beverly Jenkins. Again, Beverly Jenkins, an absolute powerhouse in the romance sphere. This is about Valinda, or Val as she goes by, and she's originally from, this is a historical romance. She is originally from the north, but decides to move to the South to open a school, because this is post-emancipation. But so she wants to, you know, teach Black folks how to read so they can, you know, better their lives and try to get out of the hole that slavery left behind. And then we're following Drake. I forgot his name for a second. Drake, who is part of the Levesque family, who is basically a very wealthy Black man in the South during this time. And they meet under some pretty serious circumstances, so check the trigger warnings. There is an attempted sexual assault in here that Drake stops, and from there they end up, you know, forming an attachment, and we're dealing with a lot of serious issues in here too. But again, I think the balance is right. We have very swoony, lighthearted moments, and then the very serious consequences of, you know, white people being angry that slavery is no longer a thing and feeling that they can do whatever they want and take away things from Black folks by force. So we're dealing with a lot of those types of themes in this as well. I genuinely love this book. I think Drake is probably one of my favorite book boyfriends ever. The way he flirts with Val, I was getting flustered, to be honest. I want Drake for myself, and so I really love this one. This is sweet and tender. Val is such an incredible female protagonist. She is strong and smart and knows what she wants, but is also open to new things, and I really, really appreciate her for that. So I highly recommend Beverly Jenkins in general, but Rebel is my favorite of hers. Rebel is a 5-star for me. Then we have The Romantic Agenda. Now, by Claire Kahn. This has a little asterisk by it because based on other reviews that I've seen of this book, this one can be a little bit divisive, but I really like this one, so I think it's worth a shot. So this one's a little complicated as well. We're following Joy, and she is secretly in love with her best friend, Malcolm. And now Malcolm and Joy are both asexual, and so they have kind of bonded over that fact. And, you know, he's kind of the first asexual friend she's ever had. And so they are best friends, but Malcolm is in love with a woman named Summer, and he's going to propose to Summer. And so obviously Joy is not happy about this, and on a weekend getaway where Malcolm is going to propose to his girlfriend Summer, Summer brings along her ex Fox. And so basically, so Joy isn't like the third wheel. She has someone to like hang out with while Malcolm and Summer are like hanging out and doing things. And so Fox and Joy kind of start fake dating in an attempt to make both of their ex, like the ex and the best friend, jealous. And of course, the fake dating turns into a real romance between Joy and Fox. Hi, so sorry, jump scare, but this is editing Hannah, and I just wanted to clarify something. I made a little bit of a mistake, so my bad. The Romantic Agenda, it doesn't have, I believe Fox is not Black, but Joy and Malcolm, her friend, are Black. And so I'm so sorry. I was misremembering in my head that dynamic. And so I still highly recommend The Romantic Agenda, but it doesn't exactly fit the prompt of this video perfectly. So I'm so sorry about that. I still want to include it in this recommendation, but clarify that I believe I read it a couple of years ago at this point, so I'm sorry for that, for misremembering that. So a little bit of a complicated setup. This does take place over a weekend, so insta love is a part of this story, but I thought the connection that Joy and Fox form is so good and powerful, and I love the excursions that they go on together. The scenes of them together were really, really nice. The asexual rep, I'm not asexual, but I really appreciated it. I haven't read many romances featuring asexual main characters. If you think of this one as the start of a romance, then I think you could really like this one, because it is very insta-love and insta-lust, but I think this is definitely worth your time. And I gave the romantic agenda 5 stars. I really liked this one. It really worked for me, but again, take that with a grain of salt. My last recommendation is Only for the Week by Natasha Bishop. This is a 4.5 out of 5 stars for me. This is a story about, this one also has a wild setup where we've got Janelle as our main character. Her sister is marrying Janelle's ex-boyfriend. Very spicy. And then the fiance, that guy, his best man is named Rome. And this is a whirlwind, week-long vacation style romance between Rome, the best man, and Janelle, who's the maid of honor. So with that setup in mind, this is a wild romance. Again, it has a little bit of the insta-love thing going on, but these two characters do have a history because they've known each other for a long time, because of course Janelle dated Rome's best friend for so many years before all of this went down. So they do have a history, and I think it worked out really well in this one. This one is super smutty, super smutty, but tender. I feel like Rome is the type of hero who is just, he's obsessed with Janelle and has been for a long time, and treats her like an absolute queen in this book. So if you love pampering, and when a guy pampers a girl and just lavishes her with extravagance and treats her well and treats her with treats and is just obsessed with her, I highly recommend this one. He like reads her favorite book series so they can talk about it, like that level of I'm obsessed with you, you know? And that's probably why this worked for me so much, is because of that. Like he's down bad. He is so down bad, and I'm into that in romances. If the guy isn't into the woman in like a straight pairing, why am I rooting for them? You know what I mean? Like, I really enjoy when the guy is head over heels for the girl. It just really works for me. So this is one of my favorites as well. I feel like I spent way too long gushing about these 10 books, but truly some of these books are my absolute favorites of all time. And I really hope you guys pick some of these up. What are your favorite romances featuring Black folks? I would love to know. More recommendations in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Happy Valentine's Day, or happy day whenever you choose to click on this video. And I will see you in another video of mine very soon. Bye.